Ben Bernanke's coming to town and to basically provide his evaluation of the Bank of England's framework. So it's already been reported in the press that he's going to be recommending probably what we refer to as scenario-based forward guidance and so on. But it's not clear at this point. But at least the initial press report says no dot plot. Thank God, because we would not have been happy with the dot plot when you can't connect the dots. So you need to have consistent macro scenarios to be able to understand what monetary policy is trying to do in the economy to anchor inflation and inflation expectations, and of course to efficiently manage any short-run trade-offs, such as the short-run trade-off between inflation and output, or between inflation and unemployment, and so on. And so this first video Leah and I are doing, it's a part of a multi set video looking at the Bank of England from the perspective of the latest generation of monetary policy frameworks that we developed at the Central Bank of Armenia. So Leah is here and is a level 1 student at the Central Bank of Armenia. This project, what we call FPAS Mark II, is a form of scenarios-based forward guidance that is designed for an institutional framework where you have high levels of individual board accountability. Okay, so the idea that basically you put a board together and you want these people that have different views about what is going on in the economy, and of course through discussions and deliberations about these different views, you try to cover the entire uncertainty set. So that is FPAS Mark II. It is an extension of FPAS Mark I, and so it has many of the same principles in it that FPAS Mark I had, starting with the 3 essential ingredients that are on the screen for doing any forward-looking monetary policy analysis. And they are, of course, where is the economy today? Today, for example, we have uncertainty in what we think the neutral interest rate is. Larry Summers, about a month ago on Bloomberg, has indicated that in the case of the United States, the neutral interest rate could be as high as in the 4s. So it's currently 2.5 in the Fed's dot plot. Just been revised up a little bit because one of the FOMC members went for a higher number. But Larry suggested that it could return back to levels like what we observed before the global financial crisis, when it was a number like 4 and above 4. And so obviously it drifted down over time as people's perceptions of it declined over time. But it's very clear there's uncertainty in what the neutral interest rate is. And if it is 4 and not 2.5, that has very dramatic implications on many things, including the sustainability of fiscal policy, whether or not monetary conditions are set too easy, both in the United States and virtually every country in the world. So FPAS Mark II starts off with the basic principles for FPAS Mark I, these 3 essential ingredients for how to think about the economy and monetary policy. So where is the economy today? What are the underlying driving forces in the economy? That question, what are the underlying driving forces, are very much connected to where is the economy today. Okay, so and of course I'll leave the last uh, and in some sense most important question that distinguishes an FPAS central bank from a non-FPAS central bank, like the Bank of England. Okay, is this last thing, which is what do I need to do with my instruments uh, to achieve my objective? Um, so Leah, did you have anything to like add about any of this stuff that I talked about?
Yes, thanks, Doug. I am Lia, as Doug mentioned. I am a level 1 student in Global Forecasting School. I am also working in Central Bank of Armenia, and as you know, we currently adopted FPAS Mark II. And as you know, this Global Forecasting School is the part of this process, because in FPAS Mark II, we are more concentrating on the human resources, on the people. So this FPAS Mark II is the next generation of the forecasting and policy analysis system. And within the FPAS Mark II framework, we acknowledge that the central bank, just like other market agents, faces many sources of risks and uncertainties in the process of our monetary policy making, and also communication, during the communication. So in the FPAS Mark II framework, we elevate attentions to uncertainties in monetary policy making and provide a systematic and structured framework to think about the monetary policy as a risk management exercise, as well as a systematic framework for developing policies of least regrets. So I think this least regrets part is the most beautiful in FPAS Mark II. Because we're doing one of the most responsible work in the country's economy, and also the need for FPAS Mark II was especially apparent during the recent COVID crisis, when policymaking frameworks of many central banks were unable to deal with the significant and increasing uncertainty. This also during these risks and these uncertainties, also we noticed the fall in baselines and also in local approximations. That's why instead of the baselines, we are purposing some case scenarios, which are case A, B, X, and Y, about what you can read in our recent papers that are published in Central Bank of Armenia's and Better Policy Project websites. So I think this is what I wanted to add. Maybe Doug can continue, and then
Well, yeah, I just wanted to add a few things. So now we're at the stage of basically teaching FPAS Mark II, to a bunch of other central banks. We have a summer intern program at the Diligent Training and Research Center that takes place in July and August. And we have currently about 35 students from U.S. schools that are coming to understand and learn about FPAS Mark II, as well as all the types of models, like endogenous money creation, models with stock flow dynamics, models looking at fiscal policy issues, all because we think that these issues are going to become extremely important over the next several years and so on. So we have this summer intern program that starts off with some pretty intensive training on how to think about monetary policy in general, but monetary policy under FPAS Mark II. And we've created this central bank watchers uh, group in the global forecasting school that basically looks at all the major central banks and and analyzes them from the perspective of FPAS Mark II. And so the students will be writing papers, uh, going back asking Larry Summers' question that he posed to us when he was providing comments to us on the development of FPAS Mark II at the Central Bank of Armenia, where he said it's going to be great because you'll be able to go back and look at how the world would have been managed so much better in a world where you recognize uncertainty and talk about policies of least regrets and so on. So we're doing that research now on many countries, uh, uh, collaborating with students on issues that are related to that. There's also a lot of research going on in the sense that YIKES Getchen, who leads our research, him and I have been working on issues that are related to demographics or specifically aging and migration, which are going to be very important issues over the coming decades and so on. And so there'll also be people coming during the second month and either be carrying on with applying FPAS Mark II to specific countries and so on, or simply carrying on with their research project. So many of them are working on theses, graduate theses, and so on. So we have fun times at the Diligent Training and Research Center. Leah, there's going to be some fun things. Maybe you could talk about what uh, the Diligent Training and Research Center will be like in July and in August. Um,
Yes, Dilijan. I can say that I am from Yerevan. It's the capital city of Armenia, but we moved to Dilijan to work here in Central Bank of Armenia. And Dilijan is one of the most beautiful cities in Armenia because it's located in the forest, and the air quality is so high here. And also we have UWC, which is you know, the one of the famous schools in the world. And also we have IPE, which program is designed by the MIT. And this like city is a multicultural city, and here there are lots of creative people, and it's interesting city. People are so interesting, hospitable. I can say that all Armenians are hospitable, but and the city is so kind city. And the Dilijan Research and Training Center is one of the most beautiful buildings here. And also there are working people who are so responsible, who are critical thinkers, who are so creative. And I think it will be so interesting to be in Diligent Research and Training Center. So I was here starting from 2020, and I joined a global forecasting school 1 year ago. And here there is a dynamic learning environment, I can say. because in this environment, people are pushing you up, and maybe each of members of our environment has their own experience. But for me, it is the environment where people are engaged in these processes, because we have really very high standards for people who want to join our team, and who want to learn in global forecasting school. And also where here there are people who are like learning in their mistakes. And here we are also open in our communication, and we are giving feedbacks every time to each other. And also, as people are understanding and apprehensive, I can work freely in this environment, and also in Central Bank of Armenia, because I have a mother and also I have a child. And about this, our environment, I also also have a good experience when I went to our Portugal boot camp. It was 1 year ago, because we went with our child, and she was 1 year old in that time. She didn't know how to walk and how to talk. And there, even she was engaged in our dynamic learning environment, because at the end of the boot camp, she learned some economic words such as GDP and economic activity, but these words in Armenian, of course, because she's speaking in Armenian. She was speaking in Armenian only on that time. And I think that's all. Maybe Doug can add something.
That was cute, but she's entered kindergarten now. But we do have some 16-year-olds. You can look at our YouTube channel that entered the summer intern program last year, and now there's going to be 3 more of them. But you might want to check out the YouTube channel. One of them by Archum actually provides comments on Ben Bernanke's and Olivier Blanchard's empirical work on inflation and so on. So you just want to have some idea of the kids learn really quickly in Armenia. Grade 8, they're solving the quadratic equation, which of course is the first nonlinear equation that kids learn. But in places like Canada, that might be grade 11 or something like that if you weren't in an advanced program. Well, that's several years earlier in Armenia. So next part, there's several parts to this. Now that Ben Bernanke has gone with recommending scenarios based, now the question really becomes how quickly can the Bank of England do this? And so if you look at my book with Maury Upselt and Tobias Adrian, this is the book on the left, Advancing the Frontiers of Monetary Policy, and so on. So this book was published in 2018, just before I retired from the International Monetary Fund. And it took stock of basically all the experiences that we had helping central banks develop monetary policy frameworks like Central Bank of Armenia and the National Bank of Georgia, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the Czech National Bank, a very long list of countries doing that. And so what has changed since COVID? Obviously, we finally had some stagflationary shocks that are the shocks that we need to test any monetary policy framework and so on. So, but if I was the Bank of England, now that Ben Bernanke has recommended scenarios based, they should maybe go back to that book and look at all the experiences of all the FPAS central banks, they will tell you that it took them somewhere between 2 and 3 years to develop the capacity to be able to do things like scenarios under FPAS Mark 1. Okay, now an FPAS Mark 1 central bank like the Central Bank of Armenia, we showed on the right-hand side, which is a draft of our recent book that's on the Better Policy Project website, that basically goes through all aspects of FPAS Mark 2. And of course, this is the framework that's been designed specifically to deal with issues like non-linearities and uncertainty and so on. And so I think if the Bank of England was going to read anything, they should take stock of all the experiences of all the flexible inflation targeting central banks that have gone in this direction. So if we're going to look at FPAS central banks and non-FPAS central banks, this is just a picture of a group of them um, based on Asya Kostanian's work, uh, as well as people at the Central Bank of Colombia. So every year we're updating the pool of countries. And now the data set includes combination of FPAS central banks and non-FPAS central banks. And so you see that virtually all the comments that we make about the United Kingdom not having a functioning FPAS system, either FPAS Mark 1 or FPAS Mark 2, there's a number of countries, advanced economies that are still early on in the process of developing monetary policy framework. So I think what we do is we'll leave it there. And then in the next video, we're going to dive into something really interesting, which is, what is the budget of the Bank of England? And the question that we're going to ask is, all the frameworks that we have developed have been based on central banks where those resources are very, very, scarce. In the case of the Bank of England, we're going to go through the budget, but if you look at, the budget for 2023, 41 million pounds was paid just for monetary policy. That doesn't include research and statistics, and so what we're doing is as a part of our central bank watchers is to ask the question, how would we change the framework that we developed at the Central Bank of Armenia based on very limited resource constraints? How would we change what the steady state configuration would be in terms of how to organize a framework and develop the state of the art forecasting and policy analysis system? In other words, do you just scale it up along various dimensions? And so we've asked all the students in the Global Forecasting School to ask that question, because that's a really interesting question, because not just, what this, if you had as many resources as the Bank of England, how big would it be? Okay, but what is the transition? And what could the Bank of England learn from the experiences developing the human capital in central banks like the Central Bank of Armenia? The idea that you set very, very high standards, you design a system that's consistent with practicing good work-life balance issues so that you can have women can be very much a part of this, and women with children, and men with children, and virtually anybody that wants to have a life outside of work, that wants to have a very rich professional life and a very rich personal life and family life and so on. So uh, to do that, we use the dynamic learning environment that raises productivity for standard tasks where it's easy to measure productivity somewhere between 2 and 10 times what you would find in a non-FPAS central bank and even in FPAS Mark One central banks. And how do we do that? Well, we've designed the system in a way that maximizes efficiency, that maximizes human capital. And that means working on much smaller teams of 6, making sure that every person on that team is trained adequately. And of course, if we do that, and of course, we back up that 6-person team, that we can perform things like do all the current analysis and quarterly projections and write the monetary policy reports so much more efficiently than when you have all these people involved and and having a chaotic process because you don't have a good analytical framework and modeling framework that that is up to the task.